Well, the simple suggestion is just, if we figure out why it's wrong to experiment on us in certain sorts of ways, it's the best explanations, the most obvious, simple explanations, are going to appeal to the idea that we are harmed and we're sort of used and taken advantage of.
Right.
And those concepts seem to fairly readily, easily transfer to certain animals, in particular mammals and birds. Basically any animal that has a mind, is conscious, can feel things.
Right.
And if you pay attention to research about animals, there's all sorts of research that shows that many animals are much more cognitively, emotionally, socially sophisticated than we thought they were.
Right.
So it seems to me that the simplest, most basic explanation for why certain kinds of experiments are wrong when done on us readily applies to many animals.
Okay.
So that's the simple case. Well, that's the case.
Right.
And then the next step is basically responding to objections.
Right.
Basically a kind of, yeah, but, I know humans and animals both can feel pain and we both can suffer and, we both can be harmed when treated these ways. But here's the important difference, And then people will point to various differences. Humans are like this, animals are like that.
Right.
We're different, and that's what makes experimentation on animals okay, but experimentation on humans would be wrong.
Right.
So at that point, I and many others who have thought about these topics basically bring in a little logic and take a look at those objections and see how they work out.
Okay.
And a lot of times, these objections are going to appeal to various things about humans that only humans have.
Right.
So people are going to say, but humans, make magnificent artworks and engage in religious worship and write philosophy books and do all this sort of stuff, and animals don't. And so, again, it's okay to harm the animals, but not the humans.
Right.
And there's all sorts of things like this. And for many of these objections, an obvious reply is often, well, not all human beings do these sorts of things.
Right.
And presumably, you think that it would be wrong to treat babies this sort of way, very, very old people these ways, severely mentally challenged human beings these ways, even though they're not capable of these sophisticated mental activities or whatever. So what the objection, or the reply to the objection, is basically trying to show that, your argument sort of in defense of human beings and against animals seems to imply that there's a lot of human beings that you think would be okay to harmfully experiment on, eat, wear, so on and so forth. So basically, if somebody responded to my case in defense of animals or against animal experimentation, saying something like, no, somebody or a being has rights only if it can think about moral issues and make moral decisions.
Right.
And animals can't think about moral issues or make moral decisions, so it's okay to treat them badly. Well, that premise, somebody has rights only if they can think of in moral terms and make moral decisions. Well, again, there's all sorts of human beings that don't, reflect upon what they're doing.
Right.
Obviously, a baby
is
annoying you very much by crying all day or whatever. But that baby can't make moral decisions according to the reasoning given earlier.
Right.
It would seem to be okay to experiment on that baby because it can't make moral decisions.
Right.
So what this discussion often amounts to or ends up in is if we consider the range of human beings that we think should be treated with respect and not used and taken advantage of and harmed for the benefit of others, if we identify what it is about those human beings, it's going to have to be that makes them worthy of respect, so to speak, it's going to have to be a kind of low common denominator, so to speak.
Okay.
I mean, if you set it real high, something like, I have the right to life because I can do advanced calculus.
Right.
Well, what about all the human beings who can't do advanced calculus? Right. So then you go kind of lower and lower, and many people think, well, you're going to have to get all the human beings in and get them the respect and protections that they deserve, you're going to have to just kind of go down to consciousness, or the ability to feel things, the ability to be aware of the world, a perspective on the world, pleasure, pain, things like that. Pretty kind of rudimentary things.
Okay.
And then the simple observation is, well, lots of animals are like that.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the kind of simple sort of reasoning.
Okay.
And lots of different philosophers have presented this in lots of different ways.
Okay. So let me approach it from, because as I was reading that, one thought came to me that perhaps it's that people just aren't thoughtful enough about these arguments. Because when I often had thought the same things, and then when I read your rebuttal, I thought, well, yeah, that's true. So it was that I hadn't processed enough. Mm-hmm. But as I was thinking, I was wondering about the basis of your argument and the idea that questioning whether morality is flexible or not. Go right ahead. Your approach seems to be that experimentation is wrong on us, so it must be wrong on animals due to this rudimentary level. How would you take into account, say, our recent national debates on the use of torture, the morality of the use of torture, that the end justifies the means, or the different moral standards we've seen in different cultures throughout the world say that it's okay to beat a woman if she offends you in any way? Mm-hmm. With that sort of moral flexibility in different cultures or different people believing different things, can you see how that might apply? Well, if it's okay to torture a human being because the end justifies the means, why isn't it okay to, in a sense, torture through experimentation an animal because the end justifies the means? Are we finding an absolute morality that should apply that isn't applying, or how does that work?